Well, welcome to the show. I'm Brendan.
I'm Corey, and this is Our View from the Bench. Welcome back, benchwarmers. Today we're going to be diving into men's college basketball.
Now, we haven't touched much on this topic throughout the season, something that this new format is hopefully going to help us fix, but we have to talk about March Madness.
The tournament is right around the corner, and we're here to cover what you need to know to get those brackets filled out correctly and get ready to enjoy the madness. Hey, everybody, I'm Corey, a U of A fan. Bear down.
And I'm Brendan, Andy Katz dried out bracket marker, and this is Our View from the Bench. Before we get started and jump into all the madness, if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss any one of our new episodes.
Also, if you could please do us the favor, and if you like what you see, smash that like button.
Smash it. It helps us. And it's free for you. It helps us and it's free for you. I mean, it's a win-win all around, is it not?
Hell yeah.
All right, let's get into this, man. College basketball is a special sport. All these teams and all sorts of conferences, they come together to have 64 teams basically fight for the title. Now, in order to get this field together, the committee has to kind of rank and organize the teams, obviously. There's just hundreds, if not thousands, of colleges and only 64 in. They do so actually by using the net rating. You know about the net rating, right, Corey?
I'm going to say no because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, well, I mean, that works out perfect. Why don't let's break this down. Let's break down the net rating. Hey, calm down. Hey, class is in session. Come on. Hey, all right. Net. The 2023-2024 NCAA season actually marks the 6th year of the NCAA evaluation tool, or NET rankings. This actually replaced the RPI rankings that were used previously for decades that stopped basically 2018-2019 season. The net really comes down to 2 points: offensive and defensive efficiency, and the strength of your opponent that you played. There's a third factor that kind of is added into all of this, and that's something called the TVI, or a team value index. This really brings in location as one of the other factors in determining the value of all of these games. It basically rewards teams for beating higher efficiency teams on the road, as opposed to possibly beating lower efficiency teams at home. So, kind of adds a little bit of context to the layers of did you win, did you lose, how difficult was that person, how difficult, and how efficient are you? Kind of adds a couple of layers there. The old rankings that I talked about before were RPI, pretty outdated, kind of dinosaurs, I guess you could say. These are the 3 things that they took into account: a team's winning percentage, a team's opponent's winning percentage, and wait for it, a team's opponent's winning percentage. Basically, kind of boiled down to, did you win a lot? And the people that you played, did they win a lot? And the people that they played, did they win a lot? Kind of just saying, if you're beating teams who are always winning, then you're probably good as well. As we can see, it's a little antiquated and definitely needed to be updated. And here we are with net. Net includes a vast amount more than obviously just winning percentage. It includes game results, the strength of the schedule that you played, the game location, obviously, as we discussed, net offensive and defensive efficiency ratings, as well as the quality of the wins and losses that you took place and that you were able to kind of get. That, my friends and students, is what the net is all about. One last tidbit for you before we get out of class here. Since 2002, only teams that rank 40 or better in offense and 22 or better in defense have ever won the championship past 22 years. Okay. There's 8 teams in that field this year. They are Arizona, Houston, Auburn, Purdue, Tennessee, Marquette, North Carolina, and those UConn Huskies. Going for that repeat. Thank you all for paying attention, class. We'll see you the next one.
Wow, I just feel like I got out of like a really advanced math class in college or something. That was a lot of information.
Well, I hope you learned something. But we just
Definitely.
had to kind of break down, what it is really entails, so we know how this system is even made up. This is a crazy bracket, and it's just thrown together? No. There's some science behind it. There's some science. So now that we know how it all works, what we're going to do here in the rest of this episode is we're going to break down 2 teams for each of us that we've kind of put into 3 separate categories to describe maybe what their possible run in this tournament could be. The 3 that we've come up with are Fluke, Fighting Chance, and Fate. you might be able to kind of gather what each of those mean. Fluke is one of those ones that might be coming out of nowhere. Fighting chance are those teams in the middle of the field that, well, have a fighting chance. And fate are for those, 1 and 2 seeds that basically it's theirs to lose. So, Corey, let's start with the fluky ones. Who do you see in this field of 64 that is a possible fluke to, if not win it all, at least go farther, maybe upset some brackets? Who's Cinderella to you this year?
Okay, so typically when you look at those, my first thought is look at like the 5-12 games because that's where it seems like a lot of the
Yeah,
upsets
the
happen.
famous
So
upset.
exactly that 5-12 matchup, you never want to be a 5. So I'm
Mm-mm,
looking at McNeese State, I think is what they're called. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
probably.
Part of it is like it's the first year coach I think there for Will Wade, but he was the coach for LSU for a few years and had them kind of like perennial tournament bid guys as far as the SEC is concerned. But he also got fired because of like not corruption.
Like recruiting
Yeah,
violations or something?
recruiting violations, which now
Okay.
looking back, it's probably not even a thing with NIL because it had to do with like giving somebody money for something to get to the school. So, I mean, it's
Of
probably not a
course.
big deal now, but at the time it was. So,
Mm.
but when he was there, this is his sixth tournament as a coach. And with this year with McNeese in his first year, they're averaging 80 points a game, which is not an easy feat to do. I feel like in college basketball, especially like usually like 65, 70 is kind of like an
Mhm.
average points per game. And the fact that they're scoring 80, and even though they have very little postseason experience as a group, I feel like with a veteran coach who's been in the tournament a few times and kind of knows what to expect and how to get through it. Plus, they're going against Gonzaga, and Gonzaga's not usually or not their typical self where they get like beyond the first and second round. They're kind of at the chance where this could be an early upset for them. So I think they're like my first choice right off the bat.
I like that pick. To your point, dude, the 12-5 is the famous don't be a 5 seed. I don't understand how that came to be, but what's crazy is that it keeps happening. It's not like it happened a couple times and everyone was like, wow, that 5-12 matchup is something else. And then all of a sudden it just goes away. But
No.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Let's go back and forth because I want to match you on this one.
All right, go for it.
I'm going to run with exactly what you just said. Not the same team, but the same style matchup. I'm going with a 12-5 as well. This one for me is Wisconsin that's got to be looking out behind them because I've got James Madison
Oh,
University
okay.
upsetting Wisconsin in the first round and seeing how far they might be able to go as well. They are 52nd best net rating in the country. That's overall for both offense and defense. So being a top, I mean, there's only 64 teams and they're one of the top. There's plenty of teams that make it to this field that aren't really rated well. So this is one that makes it because they deserve it. High net rating. Again, a big task ahead of them, but the Big Ten wasn't really that crazy at basketball this year. Apparently, all of their talent went to football because obviously Michigan winning
Makes
the
sense.
title game. But but the Big Ten wasn't too big into the deep runs of basketball. So I'm going with James Madison University to at least upset Wisconsin and see how far they might be going in this Cinderella story.
All right. And based on your last description of the net rating, 52nd is pretty good.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Out of hundreds of schools, so.
All right. So my next one is I'm kind of sticking in the same realm, 11 seed, but it's kind of, again, 12 and 11, kind of in that same area.
Mhm.
NC State. Now, no one had them even making the tournament when the regular season ended, but having gone through the ACC tournament over the weekend and beating, not only getting the 4 games or the 5 games to win it, but they beat Duke and North Carolina, who North Carolina is a 1 seed. So that's not easy
Mhm.
to do. They have 4 guys averaging double digit points, which is, again, not something that is typical in college. Usually have like 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky, who's averaging 10 points exactly. But to have 4 guys averaging double digits is a big advantage for them. And now their defense is not great, but I feel like if you can outrun an opponent and outscore them and you have the momentum and the we just beat Duke and North Carolina in the ACC
Mhm.
tournament. You have all the potential to maybe make a run here as a Cinderella.
I like that pick. The only thing I actually don't like about that pick is that it conflates with one of my other ones,
Oh no,
but only because it conflates this, I don't like it because there's a lot of momentum for NC State. I've heard a lot of grumblings about how this might be one of those teams that kind of builds that upset in this tournament. So great pick, great pick. I feel like we're mirroring each other because I'm going to take an 11 seed as well with this one. Not going to pick the same one. I'm going to go with New Mexico.
ooh, I thought
Uh,
about that.
Yeah, the Lobos, bro. I think that they are doing really, really well right now, which is obviously the best. What you want is your best basketball being played going into the tournament. But they actually had a pretty good season all around. Into the tournament in order to kind of get the automatic bid. They beat Boise State, who was in a play-in, but maybe lost. Colorado State, who's in the tournament, and SDSU, who's a 5 seed. They beat all 3 days in a row to win the Mountain West Conference. They also, this season, have 2 wins over SDSU in the tourney, 2 wins over Utah State in the tourney, 2 wins over Colorado State in the tourney, and 2 wins over Nevada, also in the tourney. The Mountain West Conference is loading a lot of people in the tournament this year. They're giving them that props, and they've beat everybody there twice. They also rank 41st and 23rd overall in offensive and defensive efficiency. And as we've talked about before, when it comes to that rating, being up there is very, very key. So I'm going with New Mexico, the Lobos, to possibly be a fluke to make that Cinderella run.
Doesn't help or doesn't hurt them that they have 2 players who are sons of former NBA players too. So that does help a little.
It does not. Who is that? Dang, I didn't read into that
Jalen
enough.
House is their point guard, I believe. Who's
like Eddie House?
Yep, Eddie House's kid. And then Jamal Mashburn Jr. is actually on the team as well. Which when Jalen House had a big bucket late in the tournament championship game last weekend, there's a video of Eddie House in the stands pumping his chest like, "That's my son, that's my boy," like all pumped up about it.
Hey, I like that. Eddie House was a chill NBA player. I mean, he wasn't like anything to write home about, but he was a solid role player. So I give him props.
Except for the time we played on the Celtics. Other than that, he was fine.
Well, I don't like talking about that time. All right, so those are the flukes that we've got. We'll run through them really quickly again. Corey's got McNeese and NC State. I've got New Mexico and James Madison University looking to make some upsets in this tourney. Let's move to Fighting Chance. These are the ones that, they're ranked high enough. They have a lot of people kind of betting on them. They're not huge underdogs, for sure not in the first round, depending on which one. This one's Fighting Chance, that 50-50. It could go their way, it could not. Start me off, my friend.
So I'm going to tell you right now, both my teams are going to be in the SEC, so it's a little bit of a heads up. But the first one I'm going with is Auburn. They did end up winning the SEC tournament. Now, they were the 4 seed, I believe, in the tournament, and there was no 1, 2, and 3 in that tournament by the time they got to the end because they had all got knocked out already. But they're also one of those rare teams. They're ranked both top 10 in offense and defense. So there is a stat, I think you brought this up the other day. The team since 2002 that's won the tournament has been ranked top 40 in offense and 22 in defense every year. And there's 8 teams in the tournament this year that are in that category, and one of them is Auburn. And I think being in the top 10 for both and having gone through the SEC definitely makes them a perennial team to look at. Also, Bruce Pearl is their coach, who's been around for a long time. This is his 13th time having a team in the tournament. He's even been into 3 Sweet 16s. So, again, a coach that knows the tournament and kind of how to be prepared for it and ready to go. So I think it's a benefit for them. And they finished 4th this season before ultimately winning the conference tournament over the weekend again in the SEC. And the SEC kind of the last few years has been really good as far as basketball is concerned.
Yeah, which is really weird because they're not, obviously known for their football prowess with all the loaded stacked teams, including Auburn, that you've talked about, in the SEC for football. So this is a really, really good pick. I honestly was going to choose this one, but I tried to be a little bit different here. This is solid. The only other thing, you literally hit every mark. The only other added fire that this team is going to have is Bruce Pearl. Unfortunately, his dad just passed a couple days ago.
Oh, no. I did not know that.
Yeah, so to your point, great coach. He's going to get these guys, not that he wants it for his dad or for him.
No, yeah,
but his team is going to rally around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
His team's going to rally around that, and I think they can make a deep run because not only are they talented, but they're motivated, like I just said. So it's a dangerous combination. That is a solid pick for Fighting Chance. I like that one.
All right, who you got first, sir?
So the one I'm going to go with was actually the runner-up last year. A lot of people were rooting for him. Obviously, they didn't quite make it all the way. I know I was rooting for him in the title game. The Aztecs, San Diego State University, 5th seed this year. They rank top 21 in both KenPom and net ratings. So basically, they're one of the most efficient teams in the entire country. They have the 9th best defense, and they have a really good defense against the 3, which is one of the things that, if you're up on somebody, I feel like the 3 and hustle plays are where the underdogs kind of make their fighting chance.
Yep.
And if STSU, they're a scrappy school themselves. They're not one of those, Kansases that feels like it's just handed to them. I feel like they already got that hustle, and showing that they've got this solid perimeter defense, I think they have a chance to kind of take it far again, just like they did. And they're returning a handful. Now, granted, they did lose some people to the draft, but they're returning a handful of people from the previous team. I think they've got a fighting chance.
That is a good pick. And again, like you said, having some guys who were just there last year kind of be a little more motivated, and possibly they would be able to face UConn, I think, in the Sweet 16 if they get to that point. So going up against the
Little
team that beat you
rematch.
last year would be even more motivation to hopefully get a little further. So very good
Yeah,
choice.
very true. That's a good point. Yeah.
All right. So my other one, like I said, I'm sticking in the SEC for some reason. I don't know what it is,
Uh-huh.
but Alabama, who is a 4 seed, is where I'm going. Although they ended
Okay.
up only 21-11 overall, they did have the 5th hardest schedule in the nation and have 3 guys shooting better than 38% from 3. So,
Oof.
and it comes to the college game, it's obviously much different than the NBA, but there's no defensive 3 in college basketball. So scoring in the paint comes at a much more premium in this game. So if you have good 3-point shooters that can spread out and create more space ultimately in the paint, I think it's a bonus for them. And since Nate Oates has taken the reins there in 2019, this is their 4th straight appearance, making it to the Sweet 16 twice, including last season. So returning some of the same players, having that experience. And again, Mark Sears, who is their best player, I think he's averaging like 21 points a game. So they're going to be definitely a handful.
Which is crazy because if they're averaging 80 points, there's one guy scoring a quarter. It's a quarter of their offense. So,
Yeah.
I think that's good. That's a really good pick. They play super, super fast. They are lightning fast. They will almost run everybody out of the gym. And we'll get to that in a moment after we cover fate. So let me give you my second fighting chance team. I've got
Sir.
Texas Tech,
Ooh,
which
okay.
kind of goes against with what you were saying. I referenced it previously when you were talking about NC State. I do think that NC State has a really good chance to make a deep run, and I think it's for the same reason that Texas Tech does. But it all hinges on this first game between the two. If they can get past this, they have almost a cakewalk. Now, I feel bad saying this, but they have almost a cakewalk to the Sweet 16. And it's because the next opponent that they most likely will play if they get past them is Kentucky. Kentucky, in my opinion, has been for a while an extremely overrated tournament team. They produce really good talent for the NBA. They're always winning games in general, but when it comes to the tournament, it just seems to be a little short. So basically, kind of getting past NC State, which they're favored to do, would allow them almost a shoe in into the Sweet 16 if Kentucky's as bad as what everybody is saying this year. So I'm going with Texas Tech. Got a fighting chance.
All right. Nice. I like it.
So Corey kind of coined this one, and I liked it. Fate. We've gotten to fate. Here are some teams who have fate on their side heading into this tournament. Corey, please kick me off again.
All right, so I'm gonna go with one that is number 1 seed, as you talked about. This is fate, so these are teams that are basically favored or thought to be getting all the way there. And I think it's Houston. They were a number 1 seed at one point in the season, like as far as the top rankings were going. Now they did get kind of whooped by Iowa State in the conference tournament weekend, but you play each other 3 times, you kind of know each other and have more of a likely to be
That's
upset
a
in
good
a
point.
tournament championship run. So they're a relentless team. They make it hard to score against. It shows they're the number 2 ranked defense in the nation. So if
Yeah,
if
it's
you get
solid.
there, if they can play solid defense, which defense usually travels and gets you championships, as the saying goes, and they can just do their typical thing on offense and just shut everybody down, I think they have a run. And Houston's been good for the last few years, so maybe this is their final chance to get over that hump and actually make a deep run into the tournament.
That's a good point. They have been good for a handful of years. It's not like this is like, oh, Houston's good. Houston's going to be a 1 seed. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds okay. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's a good pick. But I'm going a little bit different, and you kind of set me up for it.
Oh, I know I
I'm
did.
taking Iowa State, which is a number 2 seed. They are an extremely efficient team. And we'll get to this in just a moment. We found this thing, and I'm just learning about this. Probably a handful of you out there already know about it, and I think Corey, you just kind of learned about it.
Oh,
The
you taught me.
trapezoid of efficiency, right? Um, Iowa State is extremely efficient, and they can play in either direction. They can play fast if they need to. They can play slow if they need to. They just went on a tournament run to win the Big 12, obviously beating Houston, which is a 1 seed in the tournament. I think they have all of the pieces to make a deep run. But as a 2 seed, obviously, I can't make it seem like this is going to be some weird upset. So Iowa State is my first fate team.
Very good choice. Very good choice. And again, I mean, I literally set you up for that. Iowa State is talked about. Who's the guy who used to coach Villanova? I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. He retired years ago.
Right.
Jay Wright. He has been quoted as saying that Iowa State, he would not be shocked if they won the whole thing because they have a complete team. They have a little bit of everything. They're not necessarily super strong at everything, but they have a little bit of everything and can come at you in different ways and make it a little bit harder to beat them. So a lot of people are kind of thinking Iowa State might have a shot to really make a deep run. So good choice.
All right, thank you, thank you. I'll set this last part up. Unfortunately, because we do fill this out separately, Corey and I did actually have one that's the same. I want you to kind of touch on it a little bit, but we both basically picked UConn, obviously the number one overall seed, to kind of go far. Kind of lay out why we think this is obviously not an easy case because they have to play through a full tournament, but why it might be fate for UConn.
Well, it helps that you're the defending champs, and now you're the number one overall seed as well. So it does make it a little easier to kind of think that they could do it. They are one of the most efficient teams in offense in the country. They have 2 players shooting over 39% from 3-point land, which that's like NBA. If you can get over 35, you got 2 guys shooting almost 40. That's awesome. So I think that's a big deal. The other thing is if they're going for back-to-back and you have a lot of the guys returning, the coaching staff is there, you got to know that they're trying to get them like really into it and excited because they could be the first team to win back-to-back since the Florida Gators did it back in 2006, 2007, which was the team with Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, Al Horford are the 3 guys that were all, I think there was a 4th one, but those are the 3 that come to mind that were part of that roster. And they came back for another year after they won the first one, thinking they wanted it and they could do back-to-back. So I don't know if that's necessarily how UConn put this team together, but the fact that they have a lot of those guys back, they know what it takes to get there. It's not going to be easy. Obviously, as a number 1 seed, they would only be, I think, the 4th number 1 overall seed to win the whole tournament, which joins Florida in 2007, Kentucky in 2012, and Louisville in 2013. So not going to be easy whatsoever, but I think they have the best opportunity as far as a 1 seed winning the whole thing.
I second what Corey said. That's my part. Okay. Before we wrap up this episode, I did want to show you this thing that I found. Basically, this is the trapezoid, right, of excellence. So this right here is what it shows is the entire field of teams. And it's on a graph here. The graph is the net rating that we've discussed here. Obviously, the line it's not 0 because a lot of teams have a pretty good rating, but the line is a baseline and it goes down into a negative net rating from the horizontal axis, and then up is a positive net rating. From left to right or vertically is pace, the pace of play. This tool has been used to see how efficient you are and at what pace you play in. The main place that you want to be, and where pretty much every tournament winner has been since I think 2001, or no, since 2000, is in this green trapezoid that you see on the screen. What this represents is the most efficient teams, because it's up in efficiency, and that can play in either direction. The main part you want to be is right on the line. And you can see Iowa State, my upset team, and Purdue are right on the line here. Auburn, a team that Corey picked, right in this bracket. UConn, the one we both picked as fate, right in this bracket. Houston, as Corey had mentioned as his fate, extremely slow pace, but they are very efficient. In fact, the most efficient team in the country. But they only play one way, and that's kind of what this graph shows. And you can kind of see it from some of the comments here. This is from Reddit. The bottom means you are inefficient and you play slow. That's why it's coined everyone suffers. Viewers especially. The bottom right, or quadrant 4, is chill out, you're not that good. Means you're inefficient, but you play fast. So people might think you're good because you're like, damn, they scored 100 points. They must be really good. No, they had 50 turnovers too, but they just, somehow scored 100.
That seems like the D'Antoni way of thinking, 7 seconds or less. Just run. Whatever happens, happens.
Exactly. Very good point. Quadrant 2 is where you play a little bit. You're always efficient, but you play a little bit on the slower end. This is why they call it Big D. More a defensive team. You're not necessarily trying to push the pace. You're just trying to win the game. And then quadrant 1 in the upper right is, as you can see here, recruited players from track and field programs. Damn. Because these guys just sprint. You can see Alabama, Kentucky, Arizona, Florida. These teams play extremely fast. And while efficient, they only know how to play one way. If they're not outscoring you, they're not winning. So that's why this trapezoid is kind of like where everyone is saying they need to be. And you can see some really good teams, a lot of favorite teams kind of fall right into there. Any comments about this, my friend?
Well, as a U of A fan, I like that they're in the top 1 quadrant. Now, they're not the greatest defensive team. I understand that, but they do run up and down and get a lot of points and score a lot. So if it becomes a track meet, Arizona's going to definitely have a chance. So bear down. Let's go.
Agree. No, they definitely have a chance. Being in quadrant 1 and 2 is where you want to be. Towards the middle of them is ideal, but as long as you're in 1 or 2, you have a fighting chance. The best chance, as apparently people say, is just in the trapezoid. But you're just right out of it, man. I mean, that's close. That's close enough.
Yeah, but how many times have I been like, oh, U of A can totally win it this year, and then they lose in the second round? So I don't want to get my
A lot of
hopes up
times.
until they play. They did lose, I think, as a 2 seed last year to a 15. So I'm
They
just
did.
going to be a little worrisome, but hopefully they show up this year. This is the time. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Well, that pretty much kind of wraps up the first one here. Make sure you check out the rest of our March Madness episodes where we go over the entire bracket in a 3-part series. Hey, make sure you go in order. All right. Thank y'all for seeing things from RV from the bench. I'm Brendan.
And I'm Corey. Like we always say, enjoy the sports until we talk again.
Peace.
This was a Sycamore Fourth Studios production.